The gates have just opened, but no tickets or reservations required. Just find your seat and take in the views from the On Fek Circle. The On Fek Circle streams live to Blue Jay fans everywhere, 6 p.m. Eastern Time every Tuesday on the Jays from the Couch YouTube channel and Facebook page. I think it's out there on the Twitter sphere as well. You can join the conversations and contribute your views by commenting in the live chat areas. After all, it is your show, not mine. The On Fek Circle is presented by JaysFromTheCouch.com, which brings engaging Blue Jays talk to you from a variety of hosts and shows. Jays from the Couch founder and senior editor Shaun Doyle creates and moderates Blue Jays Talk for All every Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, 309 episodes strong and growing stronger. Shaun flies the Blue Jays flag while talking baseball with Toronto beat writers, players, out-of-town analysts, and fellow couchers like myself and Jays from the Couch staff writer and podcast host Karen Suter. She takes a look at baseball through Blue Jays colored glasses on the sunny side of the dome. She'll be live this Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Karen celebrates her Blue Jays fandom while delivering on-point analysis of the week that was and dishes on what Blue Jays fans should be focusing on down the stretch. Now, if life keeps you from enjoying our shows live, sorry about that, but you can redeem your rain checks to download and listen to all the great Jays from the Couch audio content at your convenience on demand anywhere you find your favorite podcasts. Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher. All three shows are available in our archives as an audio podcast and on the Jays from the Couch YouTube channel. All are brought to you by your source for quality Blue Jays coverage, JaysFromTheCouch.com. Welcome aboard, Blue Jay fans and baseball fans and people with just morbid curiosity and want to see what this dope is going to say this week. I am your shadow general manager, the duly appointed shadow general manager of your Toronto Blue Jays, the Fekless Wonder, Steve Fek. We come at you every Tuesday, as I said earlier. We're going to make some playoff stretch run talk. We're also going to kick around what the Blue Jays have been doing. Getting aggressive there. Little shadow box in there. I really like the total change in culture and attitude since John Schneider took over from the Bongo Man. And I think there were several very, I'm trying to think of the right word because I'm trying to edit it too because it's a family show. There have been some very encouraging signs over the last week from our manager, John Schneider, from players, pitchers in particular, sticking up for their fellow teammates. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. I have a couple of ceremonial first pitches I want to talk about. Not sure if you can see this shirt here. It honors the Feel Good Foundation of New York. What they do is they try to assist all emergency personnel, police, firefighters, EMTs, construction workers, people that are really out there on the front lines of everyday life, not just during courses of disaster. They try to provide all sorts of family and financial support for those that have been injured or in danger of being injured while in the line of duty. It's a foundation that I know is close to my brother Donald's heart, and his buddy Jack certainly was a victim serving the public. So Jack, this show is for you. Now, the Jays from the Couch Fantasy Baseball League, their playoffs have begun. Now, needless to say, because I would have already put it up at the top of the show and I would have been crowing and dancing. My team did not make the playoffs. In fact, the Fekless Wonders were so bad, they didn't even make the consolation bracket of the playoffs. 6 teams qualified for the playoffs. Christian Rao, the Rao Report, my partner on a separate college football podcast on a different format. We're not going to do too much plugging of that. He won the Steve division, and Chris Healy of Willie Mays Hayes. I love that. I just love that team name. He won the Delgado division. They got first round buys. More importantly, they earned $50 donations made in their names to the Jays from the Couch versus ALS fundraising campaign. The league winner will have an additional $100 donated in their name. Shaun Doyle, our editor, and I couldn't be more thrilled about how it worked out. You can follow it. We do post it on the Jays from the Couch Facebook page. The leagues itself have its own Facebook page, the Jays from the Couch Fantasy League. We also share it up there on Twitter with links to at Fekless Wonder, as you see on the screen, and at Jays from Couch, which is the Jays from the Couch Twitter handle. Please do follow it. And it's been fun. It's a great bunch of listeners and couchers. Sean's son Liam, that was his very first fantasy league ever, and we didn't scare him off. He joined what is now a football league. We even branched off into football, even though all of us have no clue what's going on, really. I mean, there's some of them more than others, but week one already in the books for that. And we're trying to put together a hockey league. So Jays from the Couch is more than just, loudmouths like me talking at you every week. It's great articles. Bob Ritchie does a nice series of what he calls the deep dive using analytical approach, but he's not boring you with the numbers. He tries to show you what those numbers mean. I don't agree with what Bob sometimes says those numbers mean, but I mean, he makes a good argument, and you can understand, why analytics has been embraced by the baseball establishment as a whole. Ryan Mueller has done just Herculean work covering the Blue Jays minor league system. He covers all affiliates, every game, every day. So go to jaysfromthecouch.com for just loads of terrific articles. What used to be part of the On Fek Circle every week, Blue Jays Bedtime Stories, is now going to be an exclusive part of jaysfromthecouch.com, and I'll have a weekly edition of that. I think I'm going to try to have one put up before the weekend, ideally. But we're going to replace that on the show with something I had used a few times early on in the early episodes. Believe it or not, this is a polished product now, with what you're watching and listening to now. The early shows, But anyway, we're going to call this segment Fekless Wonders. And I wonder, how do you feel about the recent aggressive behavior, rutting behavior, if you will, coming from our Blue Jays? I personally am thrilled. So, and I'll warn you in advance, okay, I have no patience at all for the PC crowd that says, "Oh, you should never throw at hitters, and there should never be fights on the field. Oh, what kind of example are we setting? They're supposed to be role models." Get over it, okay? It's a sporting event. Okay, this isn't a school event. Okay, if you want to use that, for amateur sports and collegiate activities, okay. I still don't agree necessarily. It's Little League, okay, right. I mean, there's enough fighting with parents in the stands. You don't need that spilling over into the field. But honestly, it's part of professional and, quite honestly, collegiate sports as well. Sometimes you just need to make a statement. You need to stand up and say, you know what? We're just not taking this crap anymore. And, if you're going to keep it up, you need to be willing to take it as well as give it out. And I think there were examples this week that really bode well, not only for the Blue Jays down the stretch, but they're making a statement going into the playoffs and going forward, especially if John Schneider is retained as the Blue Jays manager. And I can't imagine a scenario unless he would personally turn it down, which I also cannot imagine. this Blue Jays team is going to be more old school. They're not going to be the politically correct, liberal Democrat, whatever label you want to put on it. They're just not going to be. They're going to play hard-nosed traditional baseball. Now, last Tuesday on the 7th, Snyder made a statement, a very loud statement, coming to the defense of his players with his ejection for argued balls and strikes. And it absolutely had to be done. One of his players was going to get tossed because the strike zone management by umpires all season long has just been atrocious. If they didn't have a union, there would be a lot of umpires out of jobs. And all they are doing is making it mandatory for Bob Manfred and the league offices to introduce the robotic strike zone. I know there has to be a negotiation with the Players Association, and they're going to drag their feet on it because they need to protect their union brethren. But the robotic strike zone, like it or not, is going to be part of baseball, not in 2023, but a lot of MLB analysts, Ken Rosenthal, Jason Stark, Peter Gammons, people that are Hall of Fame writers, all feel 2024 there's going to be a robotic strike zone. Is it going to be perfect? Nothing's ever perfect. I mean, you're taking a three-dimensional situation of a ball crossing the plate. You have to take out the batter and the catcher in the background, turn it into a two-dimensional image, and then decide it was a ball, it was a strike. And this all has to happen in an instant. This isn't going to be like a process that, it's going to take forever. Now, in the minors, they're actually giving options for the catcher and the pitcher and the batter only to ask for a review. Not managers, not anybody else, just those three entities. I would imagine at some point it's going to just be the catcher and the batter, because a pitcher thinks everything he throws is a strike. Even Yusei Kikuchi thinks everything he throws is a strike. But on that night, last Tuesday, it was really out of hand. Schneider just lost it. And I don't think it was an act. He really lost it. But it was a very strategic time to come to the defense of his pitchers, come to the defense of his players. So that was terrific. Later on in that inning, Orioles reliever Brian Baker, former Blue Jay reliever Brian Baker, the guy that made his major league debut as a Blue Jay earlier this season, he got a little animated. He went a little Joey Bats after getting Teoscar Hernandez to ground into a 6-4-3 double play. Teo didn't take very kindly to that. But, those things happen. At the end of the inning, after striking out Matt Chapman, Baker seemed to be walking in the direction of the Blue Jays bullpen. He felt Teoscar was yapping still too much. And he basically did a stare down. Benches emptied, bullpens emptied. No punches were thrown. Teoscar had to get a new jersey because by being restrained both by opponents and his own teammates, he was pretty fired up. So ripped off the buttons. He had to get a new shirt. So no harm, no foul. After the game, Baker basically tried to fluff it off. I don't want to get the quote exactly. I don't want to use my memory because, as you can tell by the graying hair, I don't have all the cards in the deck. And the cards I do have, many of them are jokers. But Baker tried to diffuse the controversy by saying, I think everybody knows at this point, I'm pretty fired up, pretty intense out there. And he is. I mean, he's a very emotional. He's an untalented version of Alek Manoah in many ways. The Jays, though, didn't, even though he's a former teammate, didn't quite take it that way. They took it as, you're trying to show us up, or you're trying to get back at us, or try to make a statement because we DFA'd you and now you got on another team. The best line of that entire situation, though, came from Vladdy. And he said in his post game through his interpreter, "We believe if you're looking into our dugout, that means you want problems. You can enjoy the moment when you stare at the person. It's kind of disrespectful. I mean, maybe you think you're a superhero or something." If that's not the line of the year, it's certainly going to get nominations for the award. That was terrific. But again, a sign of a team that nobody doubts is very close knit. So perhaps you could even use that as a reason why Ross Atkins is not maybe as aggressive as you would hope him to be. But this is a close knit team, and they stood up. Now, last night, Javi Guerra of the Rays in the seventh inning hit Bo Bichette on the wrist. But an inch or two either direction, it would have hit him smashed right directly in the face. 97-mile-an-hour fastball. The Rays, like many Blue Jays pitchers, aren't afraid to throw inside, aren't afraid to crowd you. You could say the ball got away, but the ball was designed to do more than brush him off the plate. I'm sorry. I don't think he wanted to hit him up around the head, but I think they were trying to send a statement there, the Rays, at that moment in time. Bo slammed his bat down. He was pretty ticked off. And he got his revenge later by hitting the game-winning home run. But the really noteworthy thing that happened is that the very next half inning, Jose Barrios, who had a very solid start, hit Rays catcher Francisco Mejia. Now, he tried to say, oh no, it wasn't purpose. It just happened. Nah, he threw at him. And good for him. If it wasn't so old and fat, I would stand up. Standing O for Jose Barrios. That needed to be happened. You don't wait. I've seen comments, well, it couldn't have been on purpose because they would have waited and hit one of their star players. Why? Why are you waiting? You hit their catcher. That's a statement. Okay, if it's some utility infielder or whatever, okay, maybe you can allow why you're hitting him for. But he hit his catcher, the opponent's catcher. That's sending a message. And for those of you that say, well, you can't risk that in a close game, and putting a base runner on. Yes, you can. It's no different than an intentional walk. If you hit a batter intentionally, it's an intentional walk. But the intentions are stronger and more direct. And by all means, if you are watching this live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube channel, I do want to see your opinions. I might not agree. I promise I'm not going to ridicule them, but I am curious what your opinions might be. And there's Dulcimeris. I was pleasantly surprised to see Mitch White pitch 6 innings of 3-run ball, no walks. Dulcimeris, thank you as always. You check in often on the podcast. Thank you for watching here. Mitch White pitched well. We're going to talk about Mitch White here in another segment. I don't want to get too fired up when we're talking about beanballs and everything here. But Mitch White was let down. The runs he did allow, he was let down by his defense. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to wrap up the thought about Barrios throwing. An intentional walk is no different than hitting a batter on purpose. As long as you're not throwing at his head, that's fine. And there's no need to wait. You don't wait for the next game or later in the series, or you come out right away and you say, we're not going to take this BS anymore, and you drill somebody. And the fact that it was the opponent catcher, that was a message. You can paint it any way that you want to. Barrios can say all the things that he wants to. John Schneider can say whatever he wanted to. But I think John Schneider's post-game comments say a lot. I just love the competitiveness. I love that everyone kept their composure. It says a lot about them. They're a confident group. They're obviously a close group, and they are focused on the task at hand. All of those things are true. If tensions are running high, that's okay. A lot of the guys in there know how to reel in and still compete. I would exclude Alek Manoah probably from that conversation. And I think though Vladdy does a pretty good job of keeping his cool, he does not take slights to his teammates or to his team very lightly. That is what was missing during Charlie Montoyo's reign of terror here in Toronto. He was a nice guy, a very knowledgeable baseball game guy, really poor in-game management decisions, and he was part of the PC crowd. You know, basically, he wasn't not aggressive. And when he started to try to be aggressive, it was so out of character. The players rebelled, saying, what, all of a sudden now, you want to be Mr. Tough Guy? So thank God Schneider is there. Dulcimeris back. I liked the beanball on Kevin Kiermaier last season after he swiped Kirk's game things. That one of the few things Borucki did that I appreciated. Poor Ryan Borucki. I'm with you, Dulcimeris. I thought that was terrific. And it is a carryover. And the Rays are no strangers to getting into beanball wars throughout the years. Usually it's the Yankees and the Red Sox. But in all honesty, except for 15 and 16, the Jays were just not part of the conversation. So now that rivalry is intensifying. The Rays seem to have the Jays number. So to see that happen, I think was great. To see Schneider stand up is great. I want to see more of it. Do you have to be a little bit more careful in the playoffs? Okay, I will grant you that. But again, I will repeat this until Shaun pulls the plug on my show. An intentional hit by pitch is no different than a decision to issue an intentional walk. It's also a sign of confidence from that pitcher and from the team and pitching staff as a whole that, okay, we're going to put you on first base. We're still going to not let you score. We're still going to shut you down. So that's just something to think about. Many of you may not agree. I know there are people on the couch that certainly don't agree with what I'm saying here. Or beanballs. That should be a new rule Manfred needs to consider. We need to have at least one intentional hit by pitch every game. It's not going to slow the pace of play down unless you hurt somebody, which you don't want to necessarily do. But hit him in the back, hit him on the butt. More beanballs. Okay, time for the Shadow GM report, and I want to talk about the use of openers or bullpen games. Fill that number 5 spot in the rotation for the remainder of the season. I'm going to avoid the white tirade I went on the podcast last night. You can listen to the podcast if you haven't already. It is the single worst decision that Ross Atkins ever made was to take him off the major league roster and have him go to AAA, especially given the fact that, okay, now you can't call him back up now for at least 9 more days. He was up today because of the doubleheader being able to player, but they didn't even send him for game action to Buffalo. He's been working with Pete Walker in the bullpen. You could have kept him on the roster. What, Casey Lawrence is so indispensable that you had to send White out? And Buck made a great point, and I couldn't agree more during the telecast. It's one thing to work on mechanics or delivery or pitch usage in a bullpen session. I mean, that's important. And Pete Walker's one of the best pitching coaches in Major League Baseball. But you really don't know how effective you are until you are facing major league hitters. Until you see how they react now to you suddenly going away from your slider and using your fastball more often in the count. And you don't see how they're adjusting because it's all a mind game. It's all, you must well be playing MLB The Show with Matt White. For Atkins to send him out, is just unforgivable, but that's for another show. Using them, Dulcimeris, I really miss Max Dio. That guy could eat innings. I didn't like what Whit. Something has been wrong with him this season. He isn't the Whit Merrifield that we've come to know during his peak years in Kansas City. I think his value is going to come out and shine in the playoffs, especially if the Blue Jays get through the wild card round. And thank you again for your questions, Dulcimeris. Max Castillo, a very serviceable pitcher. Give me Whit Merrifield over Castillo every day of the week. And that's not a knock on Max Castillo. I think he's going to find himself a role, and he's going to be in the major leagues for quite some time. But what you can do now by using bullpen games when the fifth spot, the rotation comes up, you're going to get guys work that you need to have sharp come playoff time if they make the roster. They started Julian Merriweather today, and I don't quite understand why they would want to have Merriweather face the top of the order as opposed to someone else. But as it turned out, it worked out well, even though the Jays lost 4-2. White, after that one inning, was terrific. He was terrific. He's the White that I remember seeing in the Dodgers system and his few appearances with the Dodgers. He pitched a hell of a game. But you can get Merriweather and Richards and Phelps and Simber, Pop. Those are guys that aren't going to pitch leverage innings. And the way the starting pitching staff has done as far as 1 through 4, they're not going to be getting opportunities to stay sharp. So I like the idea of implementing the bullpen game. As a rule, I eschew bullpen games, and I hate openers. But given the situation and given the cards that Atkins has dealt to Schneider and Candel to play, I think this makes perfect sense to do this down the stretch. There's going to be maybe one more starts that way. You're getting your relievers some work. So let's stick with that. It's too late. You blew your chance to have White prove himself. Okay, I know people say, oh, well, really, he's an acquisition for the future. No, they got him to make a major contribution now. And it was just stupid, capital stupid, to option him out so you could carry a Casey Lawrence or a Anthony Kay or whoever you want to throw out there. It's just a stupid decision. That being said, hey fans, we're gonna make the playoffs. Okay, so this little tinkering and this little experimenting, you have to look at it with a wider lens and not just openers. What's going up? Richard looked good as an opener. His last appearance, he was successful during his Tampa Bay years. Yes, he was. And I mean, I love Trevor Richards as a pitcher. I saw him go to the independent leagues. I got to see him here. There's a team about 30 miles south of Pittsburgh that's in the Frontier League. I got to see Richard pitch against him. He knows how to pitch. So again, don't worry. Okay, we're going to make the playoffs. Using a bullpen game is not going to cost you a playoff spot. If you want to say, okay, we're losing every fifth game, okay, you're not going to win all the games anyway. So I think this opener idea, this bullpen game idea, is what they need to get them prepped. Not only setting up your starting rotation, but getting whoever you carry in the bullpen. And I didn't mention Kikuchi. I don't think he's going to be on the playoff roster. I would be shocked if he is. Well, I'm out of time. I could go on for hours and hours, which would just thrill our editor, Shaun Doyle. But I'm going to say good night for now. Thanks for, as always, if you're catching us on the podcast, if you're catching it from the archives on the YouTube channel, do leave your comments. Still, same thing on Facebook and Twitter. I do check I try to reply as quickly as I can. Thank you to Dulcimeris for contributing to the program. Love it. Let's keep the conversation going all week. Don't forget Karen's show, Sunny Side of the Dome, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The Just From the Couch radio podcast comes back Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your Shadow GM, the Fekless Wonder, Steve Fek. I'll talk to you next week.